I'm an extrovert. That means I love social situations, regardless of how awful I am at them. School was amazing for me. Meeting so many people, discussing ideas, and group work were the highlights of my days. Some of my favorite memories include large groups of people laughing and playing and genuinely having fun together. But I'm not everybody, and everybody isn't extroverted. A large part of our world is introverted. The stay-at-home, small and close friend circles. Don't show me the sunlight or else I'll burn people. And from what I've heard, y'all hated school. Which really sucks because learning is one of the best feelings in the world. Especially for young children who are not able to express themselves correctly. If they don't vibe with our current school setting, they aren't going to get a good education. Studies and countless anecdotal experiences have repeatedly shown that introverted students do worse in school than extroverted students. So, I've compiled a list of these studies, and I've pulled out all the data needed to help me help those teachers out there better support their unsocial goblins. Let's see here. Kind of feels like extroversion's the baseline for a lot of these studies. I mean, look at this one. In a study of over 25,000 twins, 60% of them were extroverted, meaning that people are genetically wired to be extroverted, going beyond environmental factors. In another study, while recording whether people were extroverted or introverted for a language learning class, using the Eysenck Big Five personality model, scores were described as extroverts being higher scores, as though the measurement of sociability was extroversion, and not holding extroversion as part of a spectrum. This may not sound like a big deal, but it's little things like this that boost an extrovert-dominated worldview. We can see this worldview in many small ways, such as characters which are highly active being main characters in most media, or team-driven school and work culture putting people in open spaces or pods, or even something as harmless as summer camps, clubs, and sports being placed upon children who can't say or know any better. All of these small things add up to a huge self-image problem for introverted people, and this all starts as early as elementary school. Jeez, everything seems to be against introverts. So, wait, is introversion actually wrong? Before I get to the meat and potatoes, we should probably cook some vegetables. What exactly is introversion? Most people claim that extroverts like hanging out with people, while introverts like being left alone. However, these aren't mutually exclusive. There are many introverts in performance roles like theater, stand-up, or content creation. There are also extroverts, like me, who like to be holed up playing games for hours on end, not knowing whether the sun is rising or setting when the light outside goes red. Is introversion just a buzzword then? Well, not exactly. Carl Jung was the first to claim these terms, as he believed extroverts were outward, while introverts were inward. Extroverts are more active and have less inhibition, while introverts are less active due to their inhibitions. In a study which looked at response times for various people, they found that shy or introverted people were faster than a control when presented with a reward, but were slower than any other group when presented with a punishment or with nothing. This may point to an anxiety which makes shyer people scared of action, or at least inhibit their action. We can see this in children especially. A study by Michael Nussbaum found that when putting groups of middle school children together to collaborate, a group of extroverted students were more argumentative, while a group of introverted students were more cooperative. The researcher believed this was not due to the extroverted students being more aggressive, but rather because the introverted students were less confident with their solutions, and as such were less willing to defend their own points. Effectively, introversion is very close to anxiety. That's not to say introversion is anxiety, but rather that it works similarly to anxiety. It's important to understand this fact before we begin creating solutions to an extrovert-dominated world which ignores these kinds of people. Once again, all of these issues begin as early as elementary school, so that's where I want to focus my efforts today. If you're a teacher or just prospective, I implore you to take something from this video and modify it to work in your classroom, because I cannot 100% define what kinds of students you'll be dealing with. In a few studies surrounding schools, researchers noted that introverts did worse overall. In a study from researcher Meryl Kaya, it was found that anxiety, lack of motivation, and introversion all led to less class participation, which in turn leads to worse grades. In another study on language learners, it was found that extroverts were more fluent in their language than introverts due to getting more practice. Winston Edward Massam found that, in a Tanzanian secondary school, extrovert boys and introvert girls performed better than their opposite counterparts. There's likely a cultural influence on students' success, meaning that worse grades are almost absolutely caused by the environment they're within, rather than their actual capacities. Interestingly, this study also found that on average, introvert girls scored better than extrovert boys, which is certainly something that needs to be examined further. My guess is that, by matching what their culture thought of them, they got more support in their education from teachers and peers. Of course, whatever a culture requires of people, people will do. Whether that's presenting to a class, creating discourse with peers, or leading a group, introverts are effectively forced so far out of their comfort zone that they're practically drowning in an ocean of anxiety, with a thick and sickening desire to be doing anything but education. All of this leads to a clear point. In general, introverts are worse off than extroverts in education. Especially here in America, where being extroverted and taking charge of your life individually is increasingly valuable, introverts are being sidelined. Part of this sidelining, however unfortunate, is due to the nature of introversion. As it is similar to anxiety, it takes a while to warm up to new situations. Not understanding a space you enter can be overstimulating, which can be very stressful to introverts. A lot of introverted behavior matches information about temperament, especially regarding young children. In early childhood, patterns of behavior can be easily made, and have been separated into 3 distinct categories: easy, difficult, and slow to warm, though some overlap is possible. While all of these are self-explanatory, it's important to note the third type, slow to warm. Children who are slow to warm are shy about new people and circumstances, and take a while to become comfortable in these settings. Awfully similar to introverted behavior. We see this behavior mostly continue as is into adulthood, unless a life event comes by to force change. In adulthood, extroverts typically have many friends, though only some will be really close. Meanwhile, introverts typically only have a few friends, though they are much closer in comparison to extrovert friends. This reflects back to slow to warm behavior, taking a while to attach to something new, likely caused in some way by anxiety. So, if we want to stop the shunning of introversion in our culture, we first need to create environments where introverts can thrive equally to extroverts, where they can become comfortable more easily, where they can be supported in every step of their education. When discussing temperament, we call this concept goodness of fit, which usually refers to a child's temperament fitting in with a given circumstance. It's important to recognize that every child deserves a good fit for their personality, regardless of their background. An education system that values introverts over extroverts is just as bad as the current system of extroversion first. According to Lev Vygotsky, an early psychologist from Russia, every child is capable of different levels of education at different stages of life. This is the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. Of course, every child deserves to maximize their ZPD, which will mean different things for different students. Thus, the best way to support all students, especially introverts, is to support them all equitably but separately. The easiest way of ensuring this kind of teaching can be done is to have smaller class sizes so each teacher can focus on their students more. But the education system isn't exactly looking to support children's needs, so we'll have to operate as teachers under large classes. One of the most important points I found in my research was a method of teaching and reviewing information which allowed both introverts and extroverts to thrive at the same time during lectures. This is the think, pair, share method. When asking a question to your class, allow students a short time to think and write down ideas, then have students pair into small groups which may contain people they're comfortable with, and finally allow students to share with the class what they think. By giving students time to think, you allow them to formulate their thoughts more concretely, which can help extroverts, but is especially useful for introverts who learn mostly from reflection. The time to share allows extroverts to discuss with each other about ideas they have and synthesize them together, while also not forcing introverts at random into the situation they would rather avoid. And of course, pairing up allows introverts the same experience as sharing without the pressure of the whole class listening, which in most situations should ease the anxiety about the topic. When discussing what students have learned in lectures, you can also provide different forms of discussion. Spoken word works for some, but maybe passing around papers and documents, or using programs like Jamboard, may be easier to collaborate with. However, not all class time is taken up by lectures. Sometimes children gotta work together for a common goal, which can be really stressful for introverts, especially if they're forced into a leading position or speaking role. To avoid this issue, teachers can assign specific roles in groups to students. This way, introverts can have a role which allows them to best research and learn in roles such as researchers and note-takers, while also allowing extroverts to learn and shine in roles like group leader and reporter. This also avoids the issue of the one person who doesn't want to do any work, or the one person who wants to do all the work. When groups have to present, you can always provide different options for presentation. A slideshow can work well for extroverts, but introverts may not want to present in real time. Allowing students to make videos or to write their thoughts in a shared document can alleviate the pressure of preparing for a presentation, while still allowing the student doing so to synthesize their information and share their arguments. One teacher I had the pleasure of interviewing even went so far as to allow a student to present while underneath a blanket fort, thus being unseen and unseeing, removing the pressure of playing to a group of people. Another great way of teaching students is to play games. Some games are social, of course, due to the need to check how students are learning through discussion in these games, but there are other games which keep kids in their own bubbles, such as Jeopardy-like games like Kahoot or Gimkit. As for the incentives to win these games, extroverts have a lot of incentive already through any social elements a game could provide. However, a tangible gift couldn't hurt both extroverts and introverts, as rewards are the greatest incentive for all groups. These could be a simple gift like a candy bar or small trinket, but, and especially for group games, you can also provide extra time in class, sort of like an extra recess. A recess both supports extroverts having time to talk and play, while also giving introverts time to decompress and get away from the hubbub. Here's a radical idea. If you look around nearly any classroom, you'll see chairs attached to small desks, all in a straight line aimed toward the whiteboard. While this type of setting may work for some, it's very manufactured and inhuman. Instead, allow your students time to create their own space in your classroom. Whether this is sitting on the floor with blankets, standing on the sides of a room, moving around in a spinny chair, or even still supplying desks but allowing students to place them where they think their education will be most supported, allowing students to change their environment could make it easier to learn, regardless of their personality. Whatever you're doing in class, there's always a way to accommodate students who aren't jiving with what you're putting down. To streamline this easily, researcher Madeline Russell provided 3 key questions to ask when you're preparing something. What is your learning goal? What needs to be done normally? And how do we adapt this for our students? By following these 3 simple steps, any of the above options or anything outside of the scope of this video is already within reach. Now you just need to grab it and give the gift of learning to everyone. Good luck, and be sure to have fun with your kiddos just as much as you hope they're having fun with you. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to learn more about what I've said in this video, I have a list of sources in the description, as well as an excellent video by Alexander Avila, which I was really inspired by. Give it all a look.